And it's 10 a.m. right here in Lagos, Nigeria. Good morning, good evening, wherever the world you're watching from. It's Business Morning live from Channels HQ. Hope you enjoyed the weekend, and happy Workers' Day to all the workers out there. You still go to the office regardless of inflation eating into your wages, regardless of the traffic. You still show up on time at the office. We celebrate you right here on Channels Television. Well, some markets are still open today. Let's kick off now with global oil markets. Now we see it's down today as jitters over the economic impact of the U.S. Federal Reserve potentially raising interest rates, and weaker Chinese manufacturing data were enough to outweigh support from new OPEC Plus supply cuts taking effect this month. Brent futures for July delivery, that was down about 56 cents to $79.77 a barrel, while US WTI, that lost 63 cents, about 0.8% drop there to trade at $76.15. The US Fed is expected to increase interest rates by another 25 basis points this week. The US Central Bank has raised its policy rate by 475 basis points since March of last year, from near zero level to the current 4.75% and 5% range. And to the grains market now, Chicago wheat futures are down today, with prices trading close to last week's lowest in almost 2 years, as rain in the U.S. plains and easing concerns over Ukrainian supplies weighed on the market. Corn and soybeans, that's lost ground, with the most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade. WV1, that lost 0.7% to $6.29 for half a bushel, and corn CV1 gave up 0.4% to $5.82 for half a bushel, while soybeans SV1, that fell 0.2% at $14.16 for a quarter of a bushel. There are signs more Ukrainian grain may hit the market. According to the European Commission, that reached a deal in principle to allow the transit of Ukrainian grain to resume through 5 European Union countries that had imposed restrictions. And the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has criticized the federal government's decision to delay or suspend its earlier planned removal of fuel subsidy. A statement signed by its Director General, Dr. Chinyere Lumona, the Chamber clarified that there's great and urgent need for the government to thoroughly evaluate its economic realities and adequately put plans and measures in place to mitigate the negative consequences of subsidy removal on Nigerians in the short term. Explained that the delay will have significant implications for the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act, which may require amendments. The LCCI recommends that government must actively engage all stakeholders on the implementation of the subsidy removal, detailing milestones that will be reached, particularly in terms of social infrastructural development with the proceeds from petrol subsidy removal, and providing short-term measures to mitigate its adverse effects. And the story of the redesign Naira policy as an incomplete one as Nigerians count down to December 31st, 2023, when the old notes of 200, 500, and 1,000 Naira denominations should give way to the new. Currently, the Central Bank of Nigeria reports that currency in circulation is up about 71%. A bulk of this remains the old Naira, raising uncertainty of its availability. Our business correspondent, John McGrath, takes a look at this. Take a listen.
The Central Bank of Nigeria Act, just like many others globally, empowers it to redesign and change the country's currency between 5 to 8 years. When a Naira redesign policy was announced in October 2022 to begin circulation in December, about 3 months before a general election, many questions were asked, to which the CBN governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, attempted to provide answers.
We aim to support the efforts of our security agencies in combating banditry and ransom taking in Nigeria through this program, and we can see that the military are making a good progress in this important task in Nigeria.
Analysts had perceived the outcome of the policy differently. One of them, economist and chief executive officer of financial derivatives company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani, saw more negative impacts from the policy.
If you take the assumption that almost all trades in the markets and the informal markets are settled by cash and only marginally by POS, you'll find that the velocity of circulation of money, which is very important, is 16 times. This is very complicated. But what it does mean is that 3 times in a month, a woman who is selling rice or gari and all of that turns her money, sells, and takes the money to buy back. If the cash is trapped, then you have actually stopped her from earning money.
Deteriorating in value.
Towing the same line of thought, the Chief Executive Officer of Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise, Dr. Muda Yusuf, said the policy will hurt the Naira.
If you have a currency that is rapidly deteriorating in value, there's a tendency to move from that currency into other currencies, or to move from that currency into other asset classes.
The predictions of the economists seem fulfilled because by the end of February, when the CBN was applauding the success of the redesigned policy with the announcement that currency in circulation had dipped by more than 200% to 982.09 billion naira from 3.29 trillion naira, many Nigerians were spending hours at ATMs and banks to withdraw their money. Players in the real sector were pressured. An adverse effect has been captured in their books.
Our members suffered, businesses suffered. On one instance, those selling food items lost a lot of food items, especially the consumable ones, because there was no money available.
The squeeze spread to other parts of the economy. Frustration led to peaceful protest, which eventually turned violent in some places. There was destruction and looting at some ATMs. Banks had to shut down to protect their staff from the anger of customers who could not access or spend their money. Acknowledging the challenge, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, encouraged Nigerians to bear a temporary pain for long-term benefits. A calculation by the Association of Senior Staff of Banks, Insurance and Financial Institutions indicated that banks lost the sum of 5 billion naira to destruction across the country. When the pressure became overwhelming, some governors introduced the legal angle, asking the courts to extend the usage of the old naira. Their wish was granted when eventually the Supreme Court ruled that the old naira remains legal till December the 31st, 2023. While this seems a long time in the future, the expectation is that the old and new naira would circulate together until the old is completely withdrawn. But opposite seems to be the reality.
Anywhere you go is the old Naira note. Even on the machine you can see it's only the old Naira note they are dispensing.
Even my customer now is not using, I am using only transfer with them.
It seems as if the money is fading away.
Unfortunately, attempts to get the perspective and updates on the new Naira from the CBN has been unfruitful. The promise by the CBN's head of corporate communication to respond remains to be fulfilled. There are fears that with the current trend, Nigerians may still find it tough to get the new notes as the deadline draws closer. On the other hand, there are conversations as to the direction of the incoming administration.
The administration were to decide that we want to use the old notes. All I would recommend is they go through the process. What the Supreme Court had said ought to have been done, such that no other person would say, oh, even this decision was unilaterally taken.
More questions linger on the mind of many Nigerians, including, have the objectives of the policy been achieved? And will all the hardship and economic loss associated with the Naira redesign policy be in vain? Ini John Mekwa, Channels Television News.
And as we celebrate International Workers' Day today, a day set aside to spread awareness about worker rights and also recognize their accomplishments globally, 2023 is shaping up to be a year of strikes as waves of labor unrest sweep through countries, even right here in Nigeria, from the education to the aviation sector. Let's talk to Mr. Issa Remunao, that's the Director General, Michael Imudu, National Institute of Labor Studies, joining me via Zoom from Ilori. Great to have you on the show. Good morning. Mr. Armu, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Fantastic. I can hear you now. Great to have you, and happy.
You can see I'm actually at the Mayday Square.
Exactly. Yes, and definitely I know the energy there must be packed right now. Everyone's celebrating workers right there at the parade. But, you know, we've seen 2023, we've had a wave of labor unrest from Europe, UK, and here in Nigeria. Why do you think workers are getting agitated at this time? Why are we seeing so many strikes?
Well, first, let me, through you, salute all Nigerian workers and workers worldwide on the occasion of 2023 May Day. And the next 2 years, we'll be marking the 50th anniversary of official May Day in Nigeria, because we started observing this day as a public holiday in 1981 under the late President Shagari nationally, although we started originally from Kano, under a PRP government of the late Alhaji Remi Abubakar. You know, so I think it's clear that it's part of the workers' right that we have maintained this right to celebrate labor on this occasion. But as you said, it's not the best of times for working people worldwide, not just in Nigeria. Because of the global economic crisis, workers' income has gone down. You know, nominally, we have improvement now in the minimum wage to 30,000 Naira from what used to be 18,000. Originally, we started with 125 Naira as minimum wage in 1981, even though in real terms, that 125 Naira, because of real value of Naira, had more value than what we have currently. So what I'm saying here is that nominally, workers' pay has gone up, but in real terms, because of inflation, devaluation of currency, wages have gone down. Of course, there's also insecurity of jobs and co. But what you can concede is that workers have not given up. Through the unions, they are fighting for more improvement. And I want to say that in Nigeria, it's commendable that this administration, in spite of the COVID-19, in spite of the 2 recessions, a quiz recession, job has been secured, at least public jobs have been secured. Workers have not been laid off. Government has also agreed to the new minimum wage, and some state governors have also followed up some employers. So, but it's constant struggle, and that's why today will be a day for the workers, employers, government to bring out all these issues with a view of addressing them within the context of our labor administration framework, which is through the social dialogue. Nigeria has very vibrant Ministry of Labor that has come a long way. It was established as far back as 1932. There are disputes that are going on in the world of work. In fact, officially from 2015, Ministry of Labor has had to close about 600 labor disputes in different fields. You know better than me. University have been under stress. Medical, health sector, the same thing. But the beauty of having a framework for social dialogue is that there has always been a framework for mediation, for arbitration, for reconciliation of all the labor issues. So I expect today what we need to do is to recommit all the stakeholders to this framework of social dialogue so that we can pursue what I call a decent work agenda. Okay. Nigeria is also a strong member of International Labour Organization. And the theme for this year, for this meeting, is workers' rights and socio-economic justice. So it's a very timely occasion for us to celebrate labor.
All right, Mr. Remo, I know where you are is, buzzing with a lot of activity right now. Can you put us through what is planned for today with the celebrations?
Well, I think what is clear, I'm so happy that Nigerian workers, because we have freedom of association. Workers will be marching from Abuja, Ebu Square, down to all the state capitals. Currently, I'm in Ilorin, which is the headquarters of my institute. And I'm happy that His Excellency, the Governor, has also identified with the workers, so that they would know that labor creates wealth. And without labor, you can't really have sustainable development in your state. So I look forward to today that there will be robust interaction between the government, employers, as well as organized labor. And it's also, very timely celebration because it's on the eve of inauguration of a new government, both at federal and at the state levels. So I hope this spirit of May Day will be carried to policy formulation when it comes to labor administration, the next government that will be in place. But the last quick point I would like to emphasize is that Nigeria has a lot of policies on labor issues. We have policy on productivity, policy on child labor, on labor migration, on occupational health and safety. Now it's time to walk the talk to make sure that workplace is secure, worker jobs are well protected. And for us to get this done, then we have to improve on labor education. We need to build capacity for all the stakeholders, government officials too, employers of labor and organized labor on labor issues. The bottom line is that labor market is a specialized field. And I'm happy channels, you also find it quite useful today to create a platform to highlight the plight of the working people. So it will be nice that we build capacity along issues arising from labor, the world of work. That there will always be conflict, but all we need to do is through collective bargaining, mediation, conciliation, we can resolve them. So that employers don't lock out workers anyhow. Also, workers do not go on strike as the first resort, when actually it's supposed to be the last resort. So in summary, all I want to say is that nobody should go into an agreement that we cannot enforce. But once you sign an agreement, let all the parties obey the agreement, then we can have a peaceful industrial atmosphere for sustainable development.
All right, thank you so much. Peaceful industrial environment, that's what we're all hoping for. Thank you so much, Mr. Issa.
Thank you so much. It's quite stressful for me because I'm also at the parade ground, and I want to also salute you because you are workers too.
Yes, we're workers.
On duty today. Happy May Day once again.
Happy May Day. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you. That was Mr. Issa Aremu, Director General Michael Umodu, National Institute for Labor Studies in Ilori. There, he was right there on the grounds of the parade in Ilori. Thank you for joining us on the show this morning. All right, so after the break, we see subsidy removal still a major talking point. Right now, we'll drill down on the recent subsidy removal U-turn by the government. That's our next conversation. Just stay with us. All right, welcome back. We'll drill down on the subsidy removal conversation right after this. We've seen unemployment continues to be one of the most burning macroeconomic challenges facing Nigeria today as population growth continues to outpace output expansion. The number of people seeking jobs keep rising. We've had a number of interventions in the development finance space, but pace of job creation is still not up to par. Let's talk to Professor Joseph Nana, Chief Economist, Development Bank of Nigeria, joining me from our Abuja studio. Great to have you on the program. Good morning and happy May Day.
Good morning, Glady. Happy May Day to you too and all the workers out there.
Yeah, who keep working. Thank you so much. Well, we've seen unemployment rate now about 33% from the last data we got from the MBS, and it's projected to hit about 40.6%, projection by KPMG in 2023. How would you gauge the impact of development finance intervention so far?
Okay, good question, Laddie. So the development finance space broadly is basically here to come in where there might be market failures, meaning where less access to finance is provided to players in the MSME ecosystem. To that end, every development finance institution have their own mandate. For example, my organization, Development Bank of Nigeria, we're a wholesale bank, which implies that we have to pass our funds through commercial banks, microfinance banks, and other intermediaries to get to the micro, small, and medium enterprise players. As such, while we understand the profitability and sustainability angle is important to all financial institutions, but to be sure, development finance institutions are basically here to create and provide some level of development outcomes, development impact for greater good. And while profitability is key, that's a financial aspect of it. The non-financial aspect, in my mind, should be what we are selling as an ecosystem. For instance, let me just give you a couple of nuggets here. Capacity building, because we are a wholesale bank, we care about how the ecosystem is being developed. For example, the ecosystem level in terms of policies coming down that might affect SMEs, the PFI, that's the participating financial institutions, these players who we have to unlend through to reach the MSMEs and ultimately the MSMEs themselves. So what we have done broadly as a bank, and other DFIs are actually doing this in different ways as well. I will tell you from the DBN lens, we are building the capacity of our partner financial institutions from the lens of being able to look at their SME finance strategy, see their SME portfolio to see if it's robust enough, to look at their ENS, that's environmental and social risk management, and so on. So we have partnered with Frankfurt School of Finance and Management to deliver these high intense, if you will, lectures and trainings to basically help our ecosystem develop, to give MSMEs greater access to finance, because the DBN is to provide as a catalyst. We are the catalyst to essentially to provide greater access to finance. And to achieve this, we have to ensure that our partner financial institutions have the muscle power, the elbow room, and the understanding to essentially help deepen their respective SME portfolios within their banks. As such, right now we have been in partnership with 10 banks right now, and we've trained over 300 or so staff of those banks in an array of different things. So, for example, we know for the MSMEs, for example, we know collateral could be a major challenge. And commercial banks largely have begun to they focus on collateral as a requirement, but more importantly, they're looking at cash flow based lending, meaning if you have a positive cash flow, they will likely take a risk on you to ensure your businesses can grow. So that's one aspect. But other aspects of capacity building from a PFI level is an environmental and social risk. And our risk management tools, we have partnered again with Frankfurt School of Finance and Management to help deepen and help our PFIs, that's the commercial banks as well as microfinance banks, and let's not forget our merchant banks, to basically help build up and help understand their environmental and social risks to ensure that what we are providing, the finances we're providing, it's being used judiciously and used to fund credible businesses that are not of climate risk to the economy and so on. So I'm looking more on the non-financial aspect of our ecosystem, because in the end, we need a handshake to ensure that profitability continues to grow in our ecosystem. I'll pause there.
All right, and definitely we know access to capital is critical for businesses and startups. But with the battle against inflation, we've seen rates get to levels not seen before globally, and right here too in Nigeria. So cost of capital is rising. What is the way around this?
Cost of capital continues to rise all over the globe. The U.S., the Fed fund rates continues to inch upwards, and whatever happens in the U.S., by and large, will happen in Europe, and so on and so forth, and ultimately crystallizes in Nigeria. Having said that, inflation continues to inch upwards, which reduces the purchasing power of households as well as MSMEs. Notwithstanding, beyond that, we have seen the financials of a lot of the banks, a lot of the organizations, whether they're in the oil and gas sector or whether they're in the financial sector and what have you. In the end, profit still is being derived by all market participants. So even though inflation keeps inching up, we know there's still profit to be made. And if there's profit to be made, then access to finance should be at least be given to these players to grow their businesses, especially during the COVID-19 era, where we saw lack of access to finance occurring. We witnessed and observed a lot of businesses shut down temporarily and some closed. These hardships had a huge impact on the households that these SMEs have to operate. Now, if we are looking at an ecosystem where finance is available for all, does it mean all the business plans are viable? That's why we still look at the non-financial aspect as important. So DBN partners with a host of different educators and trainers and consultants to bring and perhaps, if you like, build the capacity of MSMEs to help them understand and judiciously use debt efficiently. Because if you can use debt well, then your business has a chance of growing past 2, 5, perhaps 10 years. So I sincerely see access to capital as a difficult task, but if you like, if your business is viable, I suspect have all the soft skills you need, have all the paperwork required, do your due diligence. Access finance through your commercial banks, microfinance banks, and so on. Look at the eligibility requirements. If you tick all those boxes, my sincere belief is you will get access to a loan. It might be small at first, but once you show your resolve to repay back the loan, you gradually build up your credit profile with that institution, and ultimately greater finance is provided to your organization and so on.
Definitely, it's Workers' Day now, May Day, and we're celebrating workers globally. But we know workers are going through a lot, with inflation, wages not, matching up with inflation at this time. What do you think is the way to help workers, at this time? Because we know the businesses are struggling, to get to do business at this time and even get money to be able to pay the workers. So what would you say is the way for workers to go at this time, to help themselves in a situation where everything is tight, at this point?
Yes, and everything is actually tight. A lot of business owners are basically pinching pennies, if you will, to essentially ensure that they are profitable so they don't have a problem of closing down their business and laying off all their staff. Notwithstanding, I sincerely believe that if you look at what the federal government has said and is currently trying to implement regarding the 40% hike in wages, that should help somewhat. While they excluded doctors and medical professionals, I don't know the reason behind that. But I sincerely believe if your business is profitable and workers are the ones who helped build your business, it is only right, it's only appropriate, and is the prudent thing to do to hike up wages. But to be sure, the issue here is this: you cannot increase wages as well, because if you continue to increase wages, in the end, you're still going to chase inflation. Because as wages go up, more money comes into hands of businesses, inflation still drives up. Because the issue with inflation is not just endogenous, it's also exogenous. And the cost push inflation is what's driving a lot of this activities within the country, lowering purchasing power for households and MSMEs. So employers alone cannot solve the problem. Government, as well as private sector, need to have a meeting of the minds and a handshake across to ensure that everybody is putting things together to grow the economy. I don't see inflation to be the long-run problem for Nigeria, because I see inflation tapering out after a while. But ultimately, we still have to go back to what is causing our issues internally. It goes beyond inflation, it goes beyond money supply, it's structural. If you look at fuel subsidy, if you look at the tax regime, if you look at the ability to create the revenues for the country. So all these play a role. If we don't produce anything, then you can't export much. And if you can't export much, you don't get the foreign reserves that you would like to bring in, and so on. So it's a complicated situation, and it takes a delicate balance to actually iron out all the issues. Notwithstanding, the folks in this administration and the incoming administration, I suspect, have their eyes on the target, and I suspect they'll hit the ground running, because in the end, this cannot be sustained in the medium or even the long term. At some point, we have to look inwards to begin to see how we can shape a positive and inclusive country going forward in terms of access to finance, in terms of households and MSMEs getting the appropriate care they require. Look at the statistics. 41 million MSMEs are in the country. They create more jobs, they provide more revenue for the government, and so on. But yet, they are the ones who are challenged with accessing finance. So you can imagine, once you can reform, restructure, and understand this ecosystem, then we can honestly see growth as we would like to see for the country.
Right.
I'll pause there.
Right, so much for the incoming government to do at this point. Hope they hit the ground running. Thank you so much, Professor Joseph Unana, Chief Economist, Development Bank of Nigeria. Thank you for your perspective today.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's go back to that conversation now. Petrol subsidy. Now, see, the federal government's decision to delay petrol subsidy removal is getting a lot of attention right now. But what's the way forward? Joining me now is Professor Damilola Olawi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Great to have you on the show, and happy May Day.
Thank you very much. Happy May Day to you as well.
So recently, President Muhammadu Buhari said the Petroleum Industry Act remains his administration's greatest achievement in the energy sector. How does this postponement impact the implementation of the PIA?
Well, the PIA is indeed a great step, a significant accomplishment. It took many years for it to come to fruition, but we're delighted it has eventually come to fruition. But as you rightly noted, the PIA is meant to be supplemented by a wide range of other initiatives. One of them is the process of deregulation and elimination of fuel subsidies. So if there is going to be a delay in the implementation of subsidy removal, then it's going to affect the overall positive gains that we were hoping to see with the PIA. Don't forget that one of the thrusts of the PIA is to ensure that the petroleum industry works in a very systematic manner, devoid of artificial subsidy effects. So now that subsidy removal is going to be delayed, then we may see a slower implementation of the PIA itself.
And definitely, we've been talking about that loan from the World Bank that's supposed to help, create a buffer for vulnerable Nigerians. What happens to that now?
Well, we've received, according to information, we've received the first tranche of the World Bank funding that is meant to serve as a palliative that will provide cash transfer to the poorest household that may be impacted by subsidy removal. But what we are seeing is that there is going to be a delay. It's going to be on the laps of the incoming administration to then implement the subsidy removal. The delay itself does not affect the World Bank's commitment of providing that funding. So what we will just see is that the process of disbursing the funding may be delayed, given the fact that subsidy removal may not occur until sometime after June. So I see that the World Bank funding will be in place, but it will then be the decision of the incoming administration on how to effectively use that funding. Don't forget that the World Bank funding is meant to be for both cash and non-cash interventions. By cash interventions, we mean the cash transfer, but the non-cash interventions will include providing mass transit, providing transportation infrastructure, such that people don't necessarily have to buy petrol and they can then go in mass transit systems. So what I expect the incoming government to do is to focus on, improving the non-cash aspect of the implementation by rapidly accelerating infrastructure development, such that we can reduce the number of households that depend on their own transportation. And that way we can, continue to provide that sort of palliative in that regard as well.
And since the federal government is dealing with revenue constraints at this point, what do you think, happens if we cannot afford to pay for this petrol subsidy going forward, but we still want to leave it there?
It will be a very tough decision. Worldwide, the process of eliminating subsidies is normally a politically charged process. And what we've seen in other countries like Indonesia and Qatar and many other countries in the Gulf, where they've implemented subsidy removal, is that it is normally through a phased approach. You don't just wake up and say it's done, a system that has been in place for many years. So you see a country like Qatar, they started with saying 30% removal of subsidy, and then they went on through a phased approach. And that phased approach includes both cash transfer and non-cash interventions, providing transportation system, easing the burden on the public, increasing salaries, providing free education, and those sort of other interventions, such that by the time you then get to 100% removal of the subsidy, people already feel a sort of comfort, and they will not feel left alone or left stranded by the government. So it's indeed a very strategic decision that the incoming administration must handle with all sort of sincerity and expertise. There is a need to tap in, to look into the process of that cash and non-cash intervention, such that we will be able to handle such a politically charged matter in a very efficient way.
And definitely, we've seen, most oil producers, they've benefited from oil prices, skyrocketing recently. We've seen Aramco also, profit a lot, from that. What can we learn from these countries and a company like Aramco?
Well, you see that the first process, you've seen a number of entities like Saudi Aramco, even Qatar Energy, formerly Qatar Petroleum. What you've seen is a process of reform internally to ensure that these large companies begin to function more like privately run, efficient businesses. And I think, in all credit to the outgoing government, the NNPC has also been reformed to become NNPC Limited, to start that process of commercializing it, making it to have the efficiency of a private sector-driven entity. So I think that process has to be intensified. The efficiency of the national oil company must be increased. Its ability to attract foreign partnerships and collaborations must be increased. And of course, it must then begin to improve transparency as well, such that even the income, the revenue are properly accounted for, and even the expenditure aspect of things are transparent as well. I think that process of increasing its efficiency, as well as promoting transparency and accountability, would increase its output in terms of how investors see it, and they will increase the confidence that investors have in it in terms of driving it to the next level. And that's what you've seen with Saudi Aramco, you've seen with Qatar Energy. They've also introduced the third dimension, which is to now begin to prepare for the shocks associated with energy transition. And that's why you see Qatar Petroleum changing name to become Qatar Energy, to introduce the fact that, well, we are also focusing on energy transition and moving from just a petroleum company to an energy company. I think we need to see more of that as well, the integration of energy transition consideration into the work of the NNPC, such that it can withstand the shocks that the energy industry globally will be witnessing in the next few years.
Yeah, definitely a lot of shocks to prepare for. Thank you so much, Professor Damilola Olawi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. It's great having your perspective today, and happy May Day.
Thank you very much.
All right, let's head on to the markets now. We have Anete with the details. We're having a lot of shortened holiday trading sessions for the week now. So Anete, welcome.
Good morning.
Happy May Day.
Good morning, Ladi.
Yes.
Happy New Month. Happy May Day.
Happy New Month. So many things to be happy for at this point. But looking at this market now, we're seeing another holiday shortened week. How are you seeing it?
It's quite interesting to know that we've had about 3 Mondays of holiday, starting the week off on a holiday note. 3 Mondays, the first for the month of May. But for last week, we saw quite an interesting scenario play at the market. Lots of buying sentiment, and of course the news of that that news which went across across the market. Yeah, the Transco equity or shareholding stake by billionaire businessman
Mr. Tony
Elumelu. Yeah. So I'll be giving you all that information, as well as the fixed income markets as the market still observes an holiday.
Fantastic.
Now, for our fixed income market, we're starting first with the FX market, where the turnover was up. But when you look at the figure across board here, it's a mixed turnover, it's a mixed sentiments there. At the FX spot market, it was down by 19.20%, where the total turnover for that segment was $318.25 million. At the forwards market, it was 2.12. It also fell by 89.92%. But the futures and the FX derivatives, they were on the other hand, up. That one was up by more than 700 points, while the cumulative $480.0 million was traded at the FMDQ OTC market for the Forex market. Now let's move over to the Nigeria Autonomous Foreign Exchange, where we saw the Naira. The Naira is not doing so much, it's not doing too well. It was down by just about 0.02% there, in contrast to what we had last week, 462 Naira 42 kobo, in contrast to what you had, 462 Naira 32 kobo. So that's it for that market. But let me just offbeat tell you about the fixed income market. The fixed income market at the Treasury bills market, it ended the last week of April in bearish sentiment, rather in bullish sentiment, and that's because the buoyant system, liquidity system, it spurred demand for Treasury bills at the last two trading sessions of the week. Activity in the Treasury bills market, it also improved last week, which was triggered by the large fund inflow from the FAC, which came about a week before that. So that also triggered the bullish sentiment which we saw at the Treasury bills market, which brings the average yield at that market to about 6.18%. Now, at the same time, participants in this space, they shifted their attention to the Treasury bills primary market auction carried out by the central bank on Wednesday. And at that auction, the CBN offered a total of 131.46 billion naira for participants there. But at the same time, the auction was oversubscribed to a level of more than 819 billion naira. That's it for that Treasury bills market. Now, moving over to the bonds market, activities were bearish, and that's because the sell-off, which was carried out on Thursday, that led to a pullback on the fixed income market, which made that market to be bearish. And then at the same time, we also saw the impact of inflation, the March inflation number, which came out on April the 15th at 22.04%. That made investors to become more cautious, as investors, their expectations worsened, triggering a mild buying interest at the short end of the curve. But when you look at the average benchmark yield, it stayed flat at 14.32%. That's it for that market. Now let's move over to the equities market. We saw the equities market ending the last 4 trading sessions of April with an upbeat 2.04% increase. That's more than 300 billion naira, and that's thanks to the trio of MTN Nigeria, Airtel Africa, and Bua Foods. So that's why the market went up. But month to date, that market, it was down by 3.4%, or moderated, while year to date, it's actually in the positive, up by 2.2%. Now let's look at the sectoral performance. Sectoral performance, you can see there, green colors across board. But the only laggard here was the oil and gas sector, which saw a pullback, 0.14%. So that's it for that market. Now, in terms of activity, the activity chart, it was up, green arrows, green colors, more than 257% for the volume, more than 277% for value, while the deals was also in the green, 24,048 deals carried out in 4 trading sessions just last week. That's about the second 4 days of trading at the NGX. And speaking of the NGX, tomorrow the NGX will be commemorating its full return to physical trading, and that will be commemorated with a closing gong ceremony by the NGX. So, Ladi, I would have given you more information, but time is never your friend.
And, you know, it's May. You know what they say about May.
Yeah, I know.
Sell in May and go away. Is that what's going to happen this time?
But I don't see that with Q1 earnings season still in session. I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much.
I can put my bet on that.
All right, I'll point that out when May is over.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
We're counting.
We're counting down. Thank you so much, Anita, there, giving us the details from the NGX and fixed income markets. Let's look at other markets now. Let's see what's happening with Bitcoin there. We see, May looking quite like a struggle at that 30K level. It's lost that level lost that 29,000 level now. We're seeing greed, though, still in the market. Talking about market sentiment, 63 points of 100. Still quite greedy there. Greedy investors we have in the crypto space, showing that there's still a lot of exposure in the market, not looking at stable coins at this time. Let's look at the top cryptocurrencies we track now. We see Bitcoin there down 2.70%. Yep, losing that 29K level, the 30K level. That's gone now at this point, even though we saw some indication we're going to break that 30K level, but it didn't happen over the weekend. Ethereum, that's trading at $1,846, down 2.89%. We're seeing big drops this morning, May Day. BNB, that's Binance Coin there, $333. But it's up 3.31%. Going in the opposite direction, we're still seeing quite bullish sentiment with investors with BNB. Cardano, that's 39 cents, that's down also 2.59%. And we see XRP losing that 50-cent level, down 2.34%. Let's bring in Gilbert Jopata now, financial market analyst. Hello, Gilbert. Good morning. Happy May Day.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Ladi, and happy new month.
Yeah, happy new month. And it looks like Bitcoin is starting off the month with some kind of struggle at this point. How are you seeing it?
Okay, beyond these retracements, which include more of maybe a broader test of sub-technical level, Bitcoin is actually presenting more of a bullish scenario. I would say in a broader scale, more in the midterm and in the long-term scenario, because we just closed 4 straight months up in the green, and never in Bitcoin history have we seen Bitcoin set a new 4 straight months high and create a new low. So if history as this is important, then this is something we should be paying attention to Bitcoin's price action. You could also see the legacy financial system is also in trouble. We saw the First Republic Bank traded more like what in the cryptocurrency market we call shitcoin, losing about 60% in a single day. And so people will start looking for alternative to where digital assets or where currency could be used or where it's being kept. And there are also chances of interest rate cuts happening this year as well. So I actually see a long-term bullish scenario for the price of Bitcoin, like a healthy activity is building up for Bitcoin.
And definitely the question on most investors' mind right now in the crypto market is the bear market finally over? What do you think?
Oh, if I'm asked that question, if the bear market is over, I think there are a lot of indicators we should be looking at, and one actually include Bitcoin, should I say price action, because we just completed the 4 straight months in the green, and never in Bitcoin history Bitcoin created a new low after it has completed a 4-month straight up. And we also have rate cut coming in the horizon. Although this may not come in on Wednesday, because we'll have our eyes for Wednesday's interest rate hike, but later this year we will also see such happening. And money always moves from where it's treated less to where it's treated best. So with that, we know the dollar is going to weaken. We also see the de-dollarization of international trade. And this actually presents a weak dollar. And institutional investors are going to move from more like a fixed bond and government control assets, and much more money will move into assets that have less control of government, which will include physical gold and digital gold, which is Bitcoin as well.
All right, new week. What do you think investors should be watching out for? What market moving data should we be expecting this week?
Okay, we should be looking at the first decision. We are expected to have interest rate hike on Wednesday, and there's over a 90% chance of another 25 basis points amid growing concern of the economic outlook and persistent inflation. And then beyond this as well, we should be looking at a different path for the Feds after Wednesday's rate hike, when we will likely start seeing rate cuts. And then I just think we should look at Bitcoin price action for the week. Bitcoin is actually ready for a retracement. and the BS may have to force us into a distribution phase, which is more like a sideways movement, which will actually see the bottom of that distribution channel, which is about 27K. But actually expect a bullish move to about 31K first before they decline to 27K. But beyond this, this is less of the tech, but a broader scale of concern about fiat currency and the dollarization of the dollar. And Bitcoin is going to react to it also with price.
And definitely, we know investors are, looking at this market. There's so many coins right now, and what most of the investors will be looking for the undervalued coins, the overvalued ones, to know if to take profit. But looking at the market overall right now, which ones will you say are undervalued at this time?
If we really look at the market right now, I love the fact that everyone is investing the rule of I don't want to lose a dollar, and the second rule is I don't want to lose a dollar. These are not moments where one will go chasing for unnecessary profit. You want to stay in a place which is safe, and Bitcoin is that digital real estate where one should be looking at. You could also look at Ether. These assets are well undervalued. If you look at where they are coming from their all-time high, we also have improved technology. The technology has improved. We also have more persons also in the network. These are not moments for one to start looking into undervalued assets that are not solid,
right,
with solid technology and a community. When such time comes, we'll get into such.
Yeah, sorry, Gilbert, we're having some, I think, with your mouthpiece that's giving us a little pop, but thank you so much. We'll keep watching out for all those undervalued cryptocurrencies. Thank you so much, Gilbert Jubata, financial market analyst. All right, so let's look at the top gainers for the first trading day of May. Let's see who's topping that counter. We see Casper there. That's up 5.60%, 6 cents. That's what's trading at. We see BNB, Binance Coin, also getting on that top gainers counter. That's up 3.18%. We saw with the top cryptocurrencies that we're tracking the market. And we see Elrond, $42.76. That's up 2.47%. So we're seeing single-digit gains in this market, showing that these coins are looking quite bullish at this time. BTT back on the counter, 1.42% up. And we see Nexo, not seen this in a while. One of the legacy coins there's up 0.79%, 71 cents. Let's look at the top losers this morning. Now we see Ajax there, AI play, 31 cents, down 7.40%. Also, that's 5.62% down. And we see ICP there was starting a bullish trend recently, but it seems to be losing that steam there, down 5.40%. So that's how the market is looking. First trading day of May Day right now in the crypto market. And that's a wrap on the program. Don't forget to join us by 1:30 on Business Incorporated for more updates and developments in the world of business. Thank you again for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Happy May Day.